Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Brand Marketing Show. I'm your host, Kath Langman, and this is our final episode of the show for this year, for 2025. If you are listening in real time, we are, of course, in that kind of strange liminal week between Christmas and New Year. All the big feast of food has been eaten, the gifts have been opened, there's probably been some wine drunk for many of you. Then there's this kind of quiet space before the new year kicks off. I don't know what you are doing, what your kids are doing. My kids haven't even surfaced from their caves. They're teenagers, of course. But for me, I find that this is a natural time for reflection, and that is exactly reflection and planning, actually. And that's really what I want to do in this episode. I'm not going to give you anything too meaty or difficult to think about. I'm certainly not here to stress anyone out today. I don't want to be, seeing blood, sweat, and tears implementing anything right now. This is going to be something that you can do this on the back of a paper napkin kind of exercise, or even just jotting some points into your smartphone whilst you're listening. Anyway, before I dive into what I want to share with you today, I want to actually tell you about something that I read on social media a little bit before Christmas. It's probably a couple of weeks before Christmas. Some of you might have read it as well. It was in a very large Facebook group and shared by someone else. I apologize, I can't credit the author of the post because I didn't save all the details. But it was a post about why so many women-owned businesses, the statistics behind why so many women-owned businesses often don't scale anywhere near at the same rate as male-owned businesses. Yes, this is going to be talking about generalizations here, which we don't all fit into those at all. I recognize that this is talking statistics. So before you roll your eyes, no, this is not about intelligence or capability or even about ambition. All it is about passions and statistics. And the data shows that men tend to invest earlier and more aggressively in their business. They hire sooner, often before they feel ready. They pursue investment capital like they deserve it, not like they're hoping for approval. And they build teams of strategists and operators, not just task doers. And critically, they actively pursue rapid scaling. It's their aim. And so it's not really any surprise that they achieve it. I remember years ago, someone coined the phrase, if you shoot for the stars, you might just land on the moon. And, the point is having a really, really big goal tends to lead to achieving a lot more than having a smaller, what seemingly more achievable goal, right? And meanwhile, women often say, I want to focus on impact, which sounds really noble. It's certainly where I started out in my first business because I was terrified of being seen as a salesperson. But, the uncomfortable truth that this post in this social media group pointed out is that impact requires reach. Reach requires visibility. Visibility requires consistency. Consistency requires support. And sadly, so many women don't ask for help or support. And so if your business can't stay in business because you are exhausted, bottlenecked, or drowning in tasks, how much impact can you actually make? And there was a line, I think, towards the end of this post that really hit me. Impact without infrastructure is just emotional burnout with a purpose attached. Now, I'm going to say that one again because it hit me. Impact without infrastructure is just emotional burnout with a purpose attached. I mean, it's true, right? And then the post went even further, talking about how so many women build momentum and then they hire a bunch of task takers to support their vision, which sounds smart. VAs and contractors who can complete tasks, yes, but not necessarily with mastery, not with foresight, not with strategic thinking. and, not with the authority to make decisions. And so you end up still being the only brain and decision maker in your business, still overwhelmed, still bottlenecked, still exhausted, and still carrying the mental load in the business, and of course, probably most of it at home as well. And so the question that this post ended with was this: are you building a business that supports your vision or a business that drains your capacity? And that question is why I wanted to do this episode today before we head into a fresh new year, because most year-end reflection exercises completely miss this. They focus only on results, what worked, what didn't, revenue up or down, targets hit or missed, which, they're important things to look at for sure, but it's only half the picture. The other half, the half that determines whether you'll still be doing this in 12 months' time or 5 years' time, or whether you will burn out and walk away, is how you actually felt about it all. Whether you are building something sustainable, whether you enjoyed the year, or if you just survived it, maybe hanging on with fingernails and teeth gritted. Those of you who are in that boat, I am sure you are recognizing that description. I've been there in the past too. It's not very comfortable. Anyway, today I'm going to share a really simple framework that I like to use. It is extremely easy, extremely simple. It's really honest. It might change how you think about the year ahead. And like I said at the beginning, you can probably just do this in bullet point form on your phone, in a notes app. You could pull out a leftover paper napkin from the Christmas feast, whatever is the most simplest and easiest way for you to document this. Don't make it harder, okay? It doesn't have to be. I have actually created a downloadable worksheet if you want to get fancy and use that to help you walk through it. And if you want to do that, I will share the link in the podcast show notes. It will be at productpreneurmarketing.com/reflection. And I will remind you at the end as well. Now, why does experience matter as much as results? Because here's the trap that I see so many business owners fall into. They build a business that they don't actually want to run. They might start with a vision. It could be freedom, creativity, impact, doing work they enjoy, having flexibility. It could be a mix of all of the above. And then somewhere along the way, the business becomes a machine that demands to be fed, and they become the person feeding it endlessly with less and less joy and more exhaustion. It's like the boss that requires them 24/7 rather than, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. The revenue might be growing, the metrics might look good, they might or they might not, but inside, they're fantasizing about walking away from the whole thing. And I have actually been there in the past, definitely by the end of my first business before I sold out of that. Maybe you have too. Burnout doesn't necessarily come from working hard. Burnout can come from working hard on things that drain you without enough of the things that fill you back up. It's an energy equation rather than a time equation. So you can work long hours on something you really love and feel energized at the end of it. And you can work a 4-hour day on something you hate and feel completely depleted. I'm sure most of us have experienced both. So when you are reflecting on a year, when you try to figure out what to do more of and less of, we can't just look at what produced results on paper in numbers. We also have to look at what produced energy, what felt like flow versus what felt like a grind, and what we looked forward to versus what we kept procrastinating and putting off. Because sustainable success, the kind that lasts for years and keeps growing, the kind that doesn't require you to sacrifice your health or your relationships or, God forbid, your sanity, requires alignment between what actually works to produce results in the business and what actually works for you, what energizes you and what, lights you up. And the good news here, the silver lining here is, as a business owner, you are the architect of your own business. You get to design it. Not all at once, of course, and it's probably not going to be perfect, but you can deliberately over time get to shape it into something that serves you and not just something you serve. And so that's what this simple exercise that I'm going to share with you today is about. Seeing clearly what's working and what isn't, not just in terms of those business results, but in terms of your actual lived experience of running the business. So you can call this a 2x2 type framework. And it's all it is to begin with is, think about dividing a page into a matrix with 4 quadrants, like literally just draw a cross in the middle of a page so that you've got 4 quarters to write stuff into. On one axis, you've got results, things that worked versus things that didn't work. So maybe at the top, you might label things that work or things that got results, and then at the bottom, things that didn't get results. And then on the horizontal axis, that would be, well, actually, if we're talking about business results, I'm talking about things like revenue, growth, profit, customer response, whatever those, whatever metrics are important in your specific business model. And then on the other axis, you've got your personal experience. So things that you enjoyed versus things that you didn't enjoy and how it actually felt for you to do the work. And so that's going to give you your 4 quadrants, and each one requires a different response. So pull out your paper napkin or your phone notes app or whatever, print off the worksheet that I've created if you want to get fancy. And let's do this really simple exercise. So quadrant 1, what worked and what you enjoyed. This is always the best place to start, by the way. If you're trying to climb Mount Everest and you get to the end of each day feeling utterly exhausted and physically depleted, you always want to look at how far you have come at the end of the day before you look at how far you've got left to go, which is just going to make you feel even more exhausted. So quadrant 1, we want to look at what worked and what you enjoyed, because this is your sweet spot. These are the activities, the strategies, the campaigns, the products, the customers, the kind of content that you might have created, any events that you did, any activities that you've done in the business, and the ways that you worked that delivered results and felt good. There's no right or wrong answers here, by the way. Whatever those things were for you, you want to write these down in that quadrant, because this is where the magic lives. And I think the action here is pretty obvious. You want to do more of this stuff, double down, protect it, build around it. But here's the thing, most people don't actually double down on their own sweet spot. They will maintain it while getting distracted by other things. They keep doing it at the same level instead of asking, how could I do more of this? How could I structure my business so that this is the majority of what I do? So when you identify things in this quadrant, really sit with them. What made them work? What made them enjoyable? How can you replicate those conditions more often? For me, in my productpreneur business, the thing that I have enjoyed most has been kind of a new thing, because it's been really playing around a lot using AI and getting super creative with the tools that I'm creating in ways that I've never been able to work before, because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a coder, I don't have the ability to create apps or anything like that from scratch. But there's so many things now that I can do, and the way my brain works is a creative problem-solving brain. I have creative ideas, but I'm also extremely analytical as well. And so I've been really in my happy place when I've been able to play with AI tools this year, and loving it. Obviously, that's not everything that I do, and there are certainly other things that I enjoy doing as well. But that is something that is 100% in my quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is what worked, but that you didn't enjoy. And this quadrant is tricky. There are the things that made money or got results, but you dreaded doing them. Maybe you're good at them. That's often why they work, but they drain you every time. A lot of business owners can get stuck here, especially, it's like they just keep doing things they hate because they're profitable. And slowly the business just becomes a prison of their own making. And you do have a couple of options in this quadrant. So when you're writing down the things that belong in this quadrant, also just think, you know, what you want to do about it. Because option one is to delegate it. To, you know, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you have to be the one doing it. Can you hire someone or outsource it? Or can you train someone else in your business to handle it? Or option two is to systemize it. You know, sometimes we really hate things because they're messy or unpredictable. Creating systems or templates or processes can make unenjoyable tasks sometimes less painful. Not fun necessarily, but less draining. And then a third option would be to question it. And this is a hard one. Are the results actually worth being at the cost to your well-being? And, you know, have a think, is this genuinely essential, or have you just never questioned whether you need to keep doing it? You know, maybe there are some other ways to get the same results that you might enjoy more. You know, if you remember that social media post, if you are the only brain in your business, if you are doing everything yourself, including the stuff that you hate, or you're just the one doing all of the decision making and the strategizing and, you know, coming up with all of the direction or directing of things, that's not sustainable. And this quadrant is where you really need to start thinking like someone who builds teams and infrastructure, not someone who just does all the tasks. Now, quadrant three is an interesting one. This is things that did not work, but you did enjoy them. And, you know, we all want to keep doing the things that we love doing, but if they didn't deliver any results, then, you know, that could be like a passion project that didn't convert. It could be creative ideas you tried that didn't land. It could be strategies you were excited about that just did not work. For whatever reason, before you and look, you know, you definitely do not want to beat yourself up about anything that you put in this quadrant, because part and parcel of being an entrepreneur is trying things at risk that they don't work. But so before you abandon everything in this quadrant, it is worth asking some questions. Was the execution wrong? Because sometimes great ideas fail not because the idea was bad, but because that maybe the timing was off, the audience wasn't right, or the implementation was just flawed in some way, shape, or form. So is there a version of this that might work with a different approach? Is there a longer game here? I mean, some things don't show immediate ROI, but they build towards something valuable. Brand building, content creation, relationship development. I mean, these often feel like they're not working in the initial stages because the results are delayed and they're not necessarily absent. And that was certainly the case with this podcast when I launched it back in 2020, I think it might have been. Took a long time and many episodes of sticking to it before I could see the fruits of all of that labor. Or, and you know, this is something to be really honest about, is this actually just a hobby pretending to be a business strategy? Sometimes we love doing something and we convince ourselves it's really good for business because we want to keep doing it. But wanting it to work won't necessarily make it work. There's nothing wrong with hobbies, by the way, but call them what they are. Don't invest business resources in something that really is just about personal enjoyment. Either iterate on it until it actually delivers results, or give yourself permission to enjoy it without expecting it to be a profitable endeavor. And then quadrant four is, of course, didn't work and I didn't enjoy it. So this quadrant is easy, at least in theory. These are the things you want to let go completely and without any guilt. This is probably the quadrant that all of you type A perfectionists want to naturally gravitate to first. Please do not do that. But you know, we're all often our own worst critics, so I'm sure this will be a really easy column to fill out. But anyway, these are the things that neither delivered results nor brought you any joy. So why on earth are you still doing them? Usually it's one of a few reasons. It could be, I should be doing this. Everyone else is doing this. I've always done this. I spent money on this, so I need to keep trying to make it work. None of those are good enough reasons. I mean, the sunk cost fallacy is real. Just because you invested in something does not mean you should keep investing in it. You know, that's like flogging a dead horse and expecting it to move. If it's not working and you don't enjoy it, every additional hour or dollar you put into it is taking resources away from the things that actually matter. So you want to give yourself permission to stop, delete it from your to-do list, cancel that subscription, discontinue that product, stop showing up on that platform you hate that doesn't work for you, and walk away. Now, you don't have permission to make these judgment calls if you've only tried something for a week. You really have to have given something a proper crack before you can make these kinds of judgments. But when you have, and you are being truly honest with yourself, honestly, the space that you create by letting go of dead weight is space that you can fill with things from quadrant one, the things that actually work and do actually energize you. Now, there's another trap that I have seen a lot this past year. I've seen it many times over many years, but particularly in the last year, and that is outsourcing something that isn't working, hoping someone else will get better results. Maybe I'm just bad at this and I'll hire an expert type reaction. But if the strategy itself is broken, if the platform has fundamentally changed, if the approach is totally outdated, handing it to someone else and expecting them to be able to get different results doing the same thing is not going to fix that. You are literally just going to pay someone to execute the same ineffective playbook. And I really do understand the impulse here. Adapting is really hard. It is a lot easier to just say to yourself, but this always worked in the past, so it should work now. And pivoting takes energy. It's easier to believe that, maybe you just need the right person, and then it will suddenly work again. But sometimes what you actually need is actually a completely different approach. So before you outsource something in quadrant 4, ask yourself honestly, is this a capacity problem or is this a strategy problem? Because hiring help will not save a strategy that's no longer fit for purpose. So how do you actually fill in this framework? So let me give you some specific prompts for different areas of your business. Look at your marketing. Which marketing activities felt like a total grind this year and which felt like flow? Where did your best customers actually come from? Which platforms or channels brought you joy versus which ones, you showed up on out of obligation? And what marketing did you keep putting off and why? Look at your products or services next. Which products were your most profitable this year? Which did you love creating, selling, or fulfilling? Are there products that you dread dealing with, whether that's production or customer service issues or something else? Is there anything you're selling that you'd secretly love to discontinue? What about your customers? What did your best customers have in common this year? Not just in terms of revenue, but in terms of how they treated you and how it felt to work with them. Were there customers who were profitable but exhausting? Are you attracting the right people, or are your marketing and messaging bringing in people who really are difficult to work with or just are not actually a good fit for you or your business? And then look at your team and your support that you have around you. If you have team members or contractors, which relationships felt really supportive and which felt like more work than they saved? Are you genuinely delegating, giving people ownership and decision-making authority, or are you just assigning tasks and staying the bottleneck in your business? What would you need to hire for next year to actually change your capacity, not just your task list? And then look at your operations. What systems and processes made your life easier this year? And what was still frustratingly manual or messy? Where did you waste the most time on things that should have been smoother? And then look at your own role. What tasks should you absolutely not be doing anymore? You can think about this as the time-sucking monster exercise. What are you best at, and what are you spending enough, and are you spending enough time there? Or if you could redesign your role in this business from scratch, what would you keep and what would you hand off? And then look ahead. How do you actually want 2026 to feel? So once you've reflected on the year that was, the next question really should be, what do you want next year to look like? And notice I said look like and feel like, not just what goals do you want to achieve, because here's what I've learned over many, many years in business. You can hit your targets. You can hit all of your targets and still be miserable. You can grow revenue and lose yourself. The numbers alone are not going to tell you whether you're building a life that you actually want to live. So let me ask you a few different questions. What does a good week look like in your business? I don't necessarily mean a perfect week because those are pretty rare, but a genuinely good one. What are you doing? What are you not doing? How do you feel at the end of it? What do you want to stop tolerating? I mean, what have you been putting up with that you're no longer willing to accept? Is it difficult customers, a platform you hate, tasks that drain you, a way of working that really doesn't fit in with your life? What would make you really excited to go to work on a Monday morning? Maybe aside from coffee. I'm sure that's not just me, right? It's my favorite thing every morning, my favorite first thing every morning. But when you imagine the best version of your business, what are you actually doing day to day? What would you need to change to get there? And if you keep doing exactly what you're doing now, where will you be in 12 months' time? So this is the big one. You want to project forward, same strategies, same ways of working, same level of support. Is that where you want to be? And if not, what has to change? I want you to not be like some entrepreneurs I know who always start the year with really good intentions. And by December, they are so exhausted and so burnt out and so over it all that they're actually ready to give their businesses away entirely. So I really want you to think about this seriously and not just as a nice journaling exercise, but as a genuine planning input because your business will not change by accident. The only way next year looks different is if you deliberately make different choices. So what choices are you going to make? A simple way that you could translate your reflection into action for 2026, think about 4 categories. What do you want to do more of? And these are your quadrant 1 activities, the things that work and that you enjoy. How can you expand them? And then what do you want to do less of? These might be your quadrant 2 activities, things that work, but they do drain you. You might not be able to stop them completely, but can you reduce or delegate or systemize them? Then what do you want to do differently? These might be quadrant 3 activities, things that you enjoyed but that didn't work. Is there a different approach or a different execution, a different angle that might make them work? And then number 4, what do you want to not do at all? These are your quadrant 4 activities, the dead weight. What are you just going to stop? That can feel getting those things down and making plans around those things can feel like decluttering your office, can feel like, decluttering other aspects of your house, your wardrobe, for me, it's going to be the drawer next to my bed that will need, it's got like 4 stacks of books on it. Anyway, so what are you just going to stop? Be specific, write it down, and then this is really a crucial part, actually make the changes. You need to book in the time, have the difficult conversations, cancel the things, hire the person, whatever it takes, because reflection without action is literally just navel gazing. And the whole point of all of this is to actually build a better business, one that supports your vision and, helps you achieve that, but without draining your capacity. So let's wrap things up a little bit here for this episode. And, again, simple framework, should be simple to understand, might be a little bit harder to be honest about, but it's going to be really powerful if you do actually do it and use it. So again, I have put together a worksheet if you want to get that fancy about things. It's just going to be a Google Doc, by the way. It's just going to have all the questions on there for you. And so you can go ahead and download that from, I think I said that the URL was productpreneurmarketing.com/reflection. And so that's going to include all of the prompts for each of those 4 quadrants and help you as well to, well, hopefully give you the framework as well as some headspace to think about how you really want 2026 to feel, as well as, but not just what you want to achieve, right? So you can download that and we will include the link in the podcast show notes as well. But yeah, that was the exercise and the reflection that I really wanted to share with you today. Before I sign off for the entire year, let us loop back to where we started, because remember about that social media post, about why women-owned businesses don't scale at the same rate as men. The patterns around investing earlier, hiring sooner, building teams of strategists and operators and not just task doers. I want to just get you to think, if you've worked through this reflection with me and you are realizing that 2026 needs to look genuinely different, and that you are really tired of being the only brain in your business, the only decision maker, that you really need to bring in some strategic thinking and not just another pair of hands completing tasks. I would certainly love you to consider whether Productpreneur might be the right partners for you. Obviously, we work in the marketing component of your business or pillar of your business, but we would be worth considering for those of you who are trying to build profitable premium e-commerce brands. So if you are wanting to build a brand that does not compete on, having the cheapest price, and you do care about building something meaningful that adds value in this world, and you want to generate profitable growth without burning yourself out, we would be great strategic partners for your brand, if that is a good description of your brand. And, we would help you to see your market differently, position your brand for the customers who will actually value it, to build marketing systems that work, and to allow you to focus on the parts of your business that actually do light you up. And so if that sounds like what you need for 2026, then book a brand growth strategy session with me. It will be a proper strategic conversation, and you'll be able to do that from mid next week. So very early in January. I will be back at, I think, about the 5th or the 6th of the month. And we can, do things like looking at where you are at the moment, what your last year was like, where you want to go, and, how you really want to feel this time next year. So you can find the link to that in our menu at productpreneurmarketing.com. But, here's what I know for sure. You do not have to do this whole business thing alone. You don't have to stay stuck in quadrant 2 doing things that work but drain you. You don't have to be the bottleneck forever. You get to build a business that supports your vision and your lifestyle that you want for yourself and for your family. Sometimes you just need to make sure you've got the right people alongside you to make that possible. But that is it from me for 2025. Thank you again for listening to this podcast and being part of our Productpreneur community. We love those of you who are creative, innovative, brand owners who really are trying to make the world around us a little bit better place, and also to build, something really worthwhile for yourself as well as for your customers and your team, something that you're going to be proud of. So whatever 2025 looked like for you, whether it was your best year yet or one that you're glad to see the back of, I really hope that you are right now taking some time to rest, to reflect, and to dream about what comes next. From me, this is over and out for 2025, and I will see you in the new year. And I hope you have a good one. Bye for now.